When I think about why I'm suddenly so excited for Kirby Air Riders, a sequel to a GameCube game I never even touched, it really comes down to one name: Masahiro Sakurai. This guy isn't just a developer, he's one of the most obsessive, meticulous, and downright passionate people in the entire gaming industry. And the crazy part is, it's not even just about the games themselves, it's about the way he designs them, the way he talks about them, and the way he respects the people who play them. That's what makes everything he touches feel different. Now, let's be real here. Sakurai could have coasted years ago. After all, the man literally created Kirby, then went on to build Super Smash Bros., one of the biggest and most influential franchises in gaming history. That's already a legacy that cements him in the Hall of Fame. But instead of just riding that wave, Sakurai doubled down. Look at what he did with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. 80 plus fighters. 80! Each one handcrafted with unique movesets, special animations, alternate costumes, sound design, stages, and interactions that all somehow work together without the entire game imploding into chaos. And remember, this isn't a small indie team scraping things together. This is a high-budget, massive-scale project where every single element still feels personal. That's Sakurai's fingerprint. Think about it. Most developers, when tasked with something like Smash Ultimate, would have made the smart business move. Trim the roster, recycle old animations, cut corners wherever possible. Nobody would have blamed them. But Sakurai, he does the opposite. He pushes for everyone is here. He refuses to cut fighters people love and instead finds a way to make the most insane, feature-stuffed fighting game in history. That mindset, that philosophy of going overboard in the best possible way, is exactly why I trust him with something like Kirby Air Riders. And here's what I love. It's not just about perfectionism, it's about passion. When Sakurai speaks, whether in a direct, a YouTube video on his channel, or even a behind-the-scenes interview, you can feel it. He's not just coding mechanics or balancing stats. He's asking the bigger questions. How will this make players feel? What will surprise them? What will make them laugh? What will keep them coming back for just one more match hours after they meant to go to bed? That's the Sakurai effect. He thinks like a gamer first and a developer second. And honestly, that's rare in this industry. There are so many times you can tell a game was designed in a boardroom, by executives staring at market trends and graphs, asking how to squeeze just a little more money out of microtransactions. Sakurai, he's the exact opposite. He's the guy who will spend 3 weeks figuring out the animation for Kirby spitting out an enemy. Not because it'll sell more copies, but because he knows it'll make players chuckle the 100th time they see it. That's why I respect him so much. So when Nintendo approached him during the Smash DLC era and said, "Hey, we want another Kirby Air Riders," his response could have been, "Sorry, I'm busy." And in fact, that's basically what he did say. But instead of turning them down, he pitched his vision. He said, "If I were to make this, here's how I'd do it. Here's how I'd make it stand apart. Here's how I'd go bigger than before." And Nintendo approved it. That alone should tell you something. Sakurai doesn't take on a project unless he knows he can push it into the stratosphere. And think about the challenge here. Mario Kart World just came out. It's not just another racer. It's the biggest, most dominant racing franchise in gaming, fresh off a brand new entry. Most developers would have looked at that and said, "Yeah, no thanks, I'm not competing with Mario Kart." But Sakurai, he asked Nintendo that very question. He literally said, "Are you sure? You're already making a new Mario Kart. Do you really want me to make another racer?" And instead of folding, instead of backing down, he went, "All right, then I'll just make something so different, so wild, and so over the top that people won't even think of it as a direct competitor. They'll think of it as its own insane Sakurai experience." And that's why I got hooked. Because if you know anything about this man, you know he doesn't settle for good enough. He doesn't just follow the blueprint, he redraws it. When Sakurai makes a game, he makes it feel like more. More mechanics, more personality, more chaos, more love poured into the tiniest details. And the crazy part is, none of it ever feels bloated. It's all purposeful. It all serves the player. That's the magic trick he pulls off again and again. So when I walked into this direct, my expectations were mixed. I was curious, but not exactly hyped. Like I said, I'm not a Kirby superfan. I don't have nostalgia for the GameCube original, and I just came off being burned out by Mario Kart World. On paper, I should have been the least likely person to care about this game. But then I remembered, it's Sakurai. And if Sakurai's name is on the box, then there's no way this is just another racer. There's no way this is just filler. There's no way this is anything less than a passion project pushed to the absolute max. And sure enough, that's exactly what the Direct showed. At the end of the day, that's the Sakurai factor. The reason I trust Kirby Air Riders to surprise me, excite me, and maybe even win me over in ways I never expected. It's not just about mechanics or graphics or even nostalgia. It's about knowing the person behind the wheel, and when that person is Sakurai, you buckle up, because you know it's going to be something wild. I've got to be completely honest with you. When the Direct actually started, I felt my stomach drop. After all that buildup in my head about Sakurai going overboard, reinventing the wheel, doing his trademark everything and the kitchen sink style of development, the first 10 minutes of Kirby Air Riders looked boring. Not bad, not broken, just underwhelming. And that was terrifying because I had hyped myself up. I had convinced myself that if anyone could separate this game from Mario Kart World, it was Sakurai. But when the footage first rolled, I had a moment of panic. Oh no, this just looks like a worse Mario Kart. The Direct opens with Sakurai doing what he always does, carefully explaining the basics. And at first, it felt too basic. He showed how the cars move automatically, how you don't actually need to press a button to accelerate, how it's all about steering and timing your boosts. He introduced some of the riders, did those fun Smash-style character joins the race reveals, and showed off a couple of the courses. But that was it. Wide, empty-looking tracks, simple turns, no chaos, no insanity, just cars gliding along like a tutorial level. And I'll admit, in that moment, I sat back in my chair and thought, is this really it? Is this what a 45-minute Direct is going to be about? And you can see it on my face if you were watching my live stream. I had that nervous smile, you know, the one where you're trying to stay optimistic, but deep down you're panicking. Because if all this was going to be was auto-driving vehicles and simple boosts, then what's the point? Why would anyone play this instead of Mario Kart World, which is literally bursting at the seams with content and polish? Why would Sakurai spend his precious time building this? I wanted to believe there was more, but in that opening stretch, I didn't see it. But here's the thing about Sakurai. He loves the drama of pacing. He loves to set you up, almost lull you into thinking you've seen the whole picture, and then completely blindside you. He did it with Smash reveals 100 times. You think you're getting one character, then boom, another one appears, or a totally different mode is unveiled. And in this Direct, he pulled the same trick. That slow, bare bones, first 10 minutes, that wasn't the game, that was the setup. That was Sakurai deliberately easing us in before ramping everything up to 100. And once he flipped that switch, my doubts evaporated. But in that moment, those first impressions, I think my panic was important. Because it made me ask the right questions. What is this game supposed to be? How is it different from Mario Kart? Where's the chaos? Where's the Sakurai touch? I was practically screaming those questions at my monitor. And it turns out Sakurai knew I would. Because right after laying down the simple autopilot steering foundation, he started dropping the answers one by one. And each one took the game from meh to, oh my god, this is brilliant. The first reveal was subtle but powerful. Every single character has a unique special ability. Not just stat tweaks, not just different skins, actual abilities that change how they play. In Mario Kart, you can pick Mario or Bowser or Shy Guy, and outside of some mild speed or handling differences, it doesn't really matter. Your strategy is the same. But in Kirby Air Riders, suddenly picking a character actually matters. The Mushroom's cap acts like a shield that can block hits. King Dedede can smack enemies aside with his hammer. Kirby, of course, can inhale and steal powers. And all of that instantly made me sit up straighter. Oh, okay, now we're cooking. That was the first crack in my panic. Because here's the truth. I didn't want another Mario Kart. I didn't want a simple reskin. I wanted something new, and giving every character unique mechanics is exactly that. But Sakurai didn't stop there. After showing off the basics of driving, drifting, and boosting, he started peeling back the layers. New abilities, new strategies, new kinds of vehicles with totally different playstyles. And suddenly I realized that what I thought looked empty at first wasn't empty at all. It was a canvas. A setup for the insanity he was about to show us. But that's the genius of Sakurai's presentation style. He knows if he dropped all of that chaos in the first 30 seconds, you wouldn't appreciate it. It would just look overwhelming, confusing, even messy. By starting simple, okay, by showing you the bare bones mechanics, he made sure you understood the foundation. Then, when the madness started piling on, you could actually appreciate the differences. You could follow the flow. He's not just a game designer, he's a storyteller. Even in a direct, he knows how to pace a reveal. Looking back, my panic was almost funny. That feeling of, oh no, this looks boring, was exactly what made the eventual payoff so satisfying. Because once the abilities, the animations, and the chaos of the real races showed up, it felt like I had been tricked in the best way possible. Sakurai let me doubt him, just so he could prove me wrong. And that's why I think this panic mode first impression is important to talk about. Because I guarantee I wasn't the only one who felt it. I guarantee there were other people watching who, in those first 10 minutes, were checking their watches and thinking, man, maybe this isn't for me. But if you stuck around, if you let Sakurai pull back the curtain, then you probably had the same whiplash moment I did, where you went from A to holy crap, this is amazing in a matter of minutes. That's not just clever game design, that's clever presentation. So, yeah, I panicked. I thought this direct was going to be a dud. I thought I was going to have to come on here and tell you all that Sakurai for once might have missed the mark. But nope. That panic was just the setup. The real show was about to begin, and trust me, it did not disappoint. If there's one thing that instantly separated Kirby Air Riders from Mario Kart World, it's this. Characters actually matter. Like, truly matter. We're not just talking about a cosmetic swap, or a tiny shift in speed or acceleration that only competitive players even notice. No. In Kirby Air Riders, every single character has their own unique ability that changes how you race, how you fight, and how you strategize. And that for me was the moment the game stopped being Mario Kart with Kirby paint, and became something completely its own. Let's break this down, because this is a huge deal. In Mario Kart, you can pick Luigi or Donkey Kong or Waluigi, but the truth is, your strategy is basically the same. You drift, you throw items, you hope the blue shell doesn't ruin your day. The differences between characters are slight, maybe even negligible unless you're a hardcore player. But Sakurai looked at that and went, what if every choice actually mattered? What if picking a character meant changing your entire playstyle? And that's exactly what he did. Take something as simple as the Mushroom Rider. On paper, it sounds silly, and a mushroom with a cap. But in Air Riders, that cap doubles as a shield. It can take a couple of hits before it pops off, giving you an automatic layer of defense. That completely changes how you play. Do you go aggressive, knowing you've got a shield to protect you? Do you play risky, weaving through hazards that would normally slow others down? That's a whole new layer of decision-making, and that's just one character. Then there's Kirby himself, who obviously has to have his iconic inhale ability. And yes, you guessed it, you can suck up enemies and steal their powers. On the surface, that sounds like exactly what you'd expect, but the details are where Sakurai shines. It's not just that Kirby gets abilities, it's how he gets them. It's the animations. It's the choice of whether to swallow the ability and keep it, or spit it out and weaponize the enemy instead, like turning them into a green shell to fling at someone else. That kind of flexibility is peak Sakurai. He doesn't just give you one option, he gives you 2 or 3 ways to use the same mechanic. And suddenly races aren't just about driving. They're about making micro decisions every second. And here's the really wild part. It's not just Kirby. Every single character in this game has some form of their own steal and use mechanic. That's insane. Most developers would have just left it as Kirby's gimmick, slapped some generic power-ups on the other characters, and called it a day. But not Sakurai. He made sure everyone could do it. And not only that, he made sure every single character does it differently. That means the slime character uses its tongue to hold a sword ability. King Dedede grabs things with his giant hands. Other characters have their own quirky ways of using stolen powers. And it's not just cosmetic. It actually affects how the ability looks, feels, and sometimes even functions in gameplay. That's absurd attention to detail, and it's exactly the kind of overboard development I was talking about earlier. Think about the workload here. In Mario Kart, you've got a roster of characters, but their animations don't change much. Everyone throws shells the same way. Everyone drifts basically the same way. Everyone handles items in a standardized way. In Kirby Air Riders, nope. Every single ability has to be animated differently across every single character. That means if there are, say, 25 abilities and 30 characters, that's potentially hundreds of unique animations Sakurai and his team had to create. Most studios would have said, that's not worth the time. But Sakurai said, do it. And honestly, that's why this game feels special. It's not just a racer, it's a love letter to creativity. But the abilities don't stop there. Beyond stealing powers, each character also has passive traits that change the way they interact with the world. Maybe one character is naturally tanky but slower. Maybe another is fragile but has insane handling. Some glide better, some excel in ground combat, some have tricky special moves that can mess with your opponents. The point is, when you pick a character in Kirby Air Riders, you're not just picking a skin. You're picking a strategy. That makes every race unpredictable because you're not just reacting to items on the track. You're reacting to who your opponents are, what abilities they have, and how they're going to use them against you. And it gets even deeper when you factor in the vehicles themselves. Air Riders doesn't just give you one kart and call it a day. You've got gliders, bikes, starships, each with their own stats and quirks. And when you pair those with different characters and abilities, the combinations explode. Suddenly you've got this insane mashup potential where no two races feel the same. Want to put a heavy tank character on a lightweight glider? That's a completely different feel than running the same glider with a speedy, fragile character. The synergies and trade-offs are endless, and that's where the competitive side of this game is going to thrive. And let's not forget, abilities in this game aren't just for racing, they're for fighting. Because unlike Mario Kart, where items are mostly about tripping people up or defending yourself, Air Riders leans into the combat side. You're not just dodging hazards. You're actively knocking people out, stealing abilities mid-race, and using them against your rivals. It really does feel like Sakurai asked himself, what if Smash Bros. Was a racing game? And the answer is this beautiful chaos where fighting and racing blend together in a way that feels totally unique. So by the time Sakurai finished showing off the characters and their abilities, my panic was long gone. Instead, I was leaning forward, grinning and thinking, oh man, this is it. This is the hook. This is what makes Air Riders stand out. Because honestly, Mario Kart could never. Mario Kart is polished, it's reliable, it's family-friendly fun, but it doesn't have this kind of individuality, this kind of personality injected into every single character. That's why, in my opinion, Kirby Air Riders already feels like more than just another racer. It feels like its own thing, a Sakurai thing. And once you see the abilities in action during the actual chaos of a race, that's when it clicks. That's when you realize you're not just driving. You're brawling at 100 miles an hour with powers that can turn the tide in an instant. And that, my friends, is where the fun begins. So here's where everything really clicked for me. After the slow burn introduction, after the simple explanations of steering and boosting, after the rider reveals and ability breakdowns, Sakurai finally just played a race. And in that moment, all of my doubts about this being too basic went flying out the window. Because once the wheels hit the track at full speed, Kirby Air Riders went from cute little spin-off to chaotic masterpiece. The way Sakurai staged it was genius. He didn't just show a standard race with him blasting ahead from the start. No, he deliberately let all the other racers zoom past him, giving them a head start. At first I thought, okay, weird flex, but sure. But then it became obvious why. He wanted to showcase the pure mayhem happening on the course when you're not in first place. And oh man, was there a lot going on. I'm not exaggerating when I say the track felt alive. In Mario Kart, hazards are there. Bananas, shells, the occasional thwomp or piranha plant, but they're neatly spaced, cleanly designed, and predictable. In Air Riders, it felt like the whole environment was trying to kill you at once. There were rails to grind on, enemies crawling across the track, environmental hazards popping out of nowhere, and rival racers smashing into each other with wild abilities. It was frantic, messy, and absolutely glorious. That's when I realized, this isn't supposed to be smooth and clean racing like Mario Kart. This is supposed to be chaos. This is supposed to be fighting for survival at 200 miles per hour while also trying to cross the finish line. And it works because of the freedom Sakurai built into the mechanics. See, in Mario Kart, you don't have much choice in how you use items. You get a shell, you throw the shell, You get a banana, you drop the banana. It's fun, it's accessible, but it's not deep. Air Riders flips that on its head. When you suck up an enemy or grab an ability, you're making constant micro decisions. Do I swallow this ability and keep it for myself? Do I spit it out and weaponize it against my opponent? Do I hold it for defense or risk it for an offensive play? And the fact that every character animates these abilities differently adds flavor to every single moment. Watching a slime slap someone with a stolen sword using its tongue? That's peak Sakurai comedy. And then there are the special moves. Every character has one. Think of it like a Smash Final Smash, but in a racing context. As you play, your special meter charges up, and once it's ready, you can unleash something totally game-changing. Maybe it's a screen-clearing attack that wipes out half the competition. Maybe it's a defensive shield that lets you bulldoze through hazards without a scratch. Maybe it's an aerial ability that launches you into shortcuts nobody else can reach. These aren't just flashy gimmicks, they're momentum shifters. And when Sakurai pulled one out mid-race, I couldn't help but grin. Because suddenly, the racing wasn't just about speed anymore, but it was about timing, strategy, and mind games. And you know what really sealed the deal? The combat. Because in Air Riders, racing and fighting aren't separate. They're intertwined. Abilities don't just give you boosts, where they give you attacks. Knock someone off a rail and you're not just taking the lead. You're eliminating their chance to grab power-ups. Smash into someone with a powered-up special, and you're not just protecting yourself. You're actively shaping the race itself. Every lap becomes this chaotic tug-of-war where you're not only trying to outrun the competition, you're trying to outplay them. It's like Smash Bros. On wheels, and honestly, that's the game I didn't even know I wanted. But here's the kicker. After showing us all that insanity, Sakurai casually drops the bombshell that this traditional racing mode, the one that looks closest to Mario Kart, is actually the side mode. Yeah, the side mode. This wasn't even the main attraction, this was just Sakurai saying, oh yeah, you can do this too. Why not? And that blew my mind. Because think about it. Most developers would have made that the whole game. They'd build 20 tracks, throw in some abilities, and call it a day. That's what a safe, marketable Kirby racer would have been. But Sakurai? Nah, he treats this like a bonus. He says, sure, you can race traditionally if you want, but that's not where the real fun is. That's just here because we had the mechanics, so why not? It's such a casual flex, but it tells you everything you need to know about how overbuilt this game really is. Watching that full lap was the turning point for me. Up until then, I was cautiously optimistic, but still a little skeptical. But once I saw the full scope of the chaos, the hazards, the grinding rails, the enemy encounters, the combat between racers, I realized this wasn't going to be just another racer. It was going to be its own beast. A hybrid of racing and fighting, chaos and strategy, all wrapped up in Sakurai's signature style of over-the-top detail. And honestly, that's what got me excited. Because as much as I love Mario Kart, it's a known quantity. It's safe, it's polished, it's familiar. But Air Riders feels unpredictable. It feels like every race could go 100 different ways depending on who you're playing, what abilities you steal, and how you decide to use them. That kind of unpredictability is what makes games endlessly replayable. And if there's one thing Sakurai knows how to do, it's building a game you never want to stop playing. So yeah, by the time that first race was over, my panic was gone. My doubts were silenced, and I was fully strapped in, ready to see what else Sakurai had up his sleeve. Because if this was just the side mode, then what the heck was the main event going to look like? Just when I thought I'd seen the peak of Sakurai chaos, he dropped the real bombshell. Because believe it or not, that frantic, combat-heavy racing mode I just spent the last section raving about, that's not even the main focus of Kirby Air Riders. Nope, that's just the appetizer. The true star of this game, the mode that Sakurai clearly poured his heart into, and the one fans of the original GameCube Air Ride will instantly recognize, is the sandbox mode. If you've ever played Smash Run on the 3DS, then you already have a taste of what this is. And I'll admit, I didn't know this going in, but it turns out Smash Run was actually inspired by this exact mode from the original Kirby Air Ride. In other words, Sakurai is basically returning to his roots here, reviving a forgotten gem and blowing it up into something massive for a modern audience. And after seeing it in action, I honestly think this is where Kirby Air Riders is going to earn its legacy. Here's how it works. Instead of jumping straight into a race, you're dropped into a massive open arena. Think of it like a mini Mario Kart World map. But instead of waiting in a lobby, you've got 5 full minutes of total freedom. No lap counters, no finish lines. Just you, your glider, and a playground full of opportunities. In that 5-minute window, the goal is simple. Collect as many power-ups as you can. You're grabbing stat boosts, items, abilities, and all kinds of crazy modifiers that will power you up. Maybe you're stacking speed. Maybe you're going heavy on attack power. Maybe you're balancing stats for all-around performance. It's completely up to you. And here's the genius. The whole time you're doing this, you're preparing for the real challenge, the minigame that kicks off when the timer ends. That minigame can be anything: a race, a battle, a survival challenge, something skill-based, or something completely wacky. And the kicker is, your performance in that final showdown depends entirely on how you spent your 5 minutes in the sandbox. Did you stack speed buffs and then get a foot race challenge? Congratulations, you're about to dominate. Did you pour everything into combat stats only to end up in a race? Well, good luck catching up. It's a gamble, but it's a gamble that keeps every round fresh because you never know what's coming next, and it doesn't stop there. While you're cruising around the sandbox, the game throws in world events to spice things up. Some are passive, like a sudden shift in gravity that changes how your glider handles. Others are active, like a call to gather in a specific zone for a 30-second battle royale. Opt in and you're suddenly thrown into a chaotic skirmish against whoever else decided to show up. Win and you score massive loot, game-changing buffs and items that can tilt the odds in your favor. Ignore it and you can keep collecting at your own pace. It's total freedom, and that's what makes it so fun. The best part? Even if you don't join the battle, you still get to see it. Non-participants see ghost versions of the players who jumped in, racing around and brawling it out in real time. It's this perfect blend of solo grinding and shared chaos where you feel like the world is alive, even if you're doing your own thing. And when you finally all converge for that final minigame, it feels like everyone's been on their own unique journey. And now it's time to throw all that progress into the fire and see who comes out on top. Now let's talk about the psychology here, because Sakurai knows exactly what he's doing. This is the kind of mode that's built to be addictive. 5 minutes of collecting, 2 or 3 minutes of a final showdown. And then, instant urge to hit rematch. It's the same energy as Smash Bros. Just one more round. You blink and suddenly it's 2 a.m. and you've been saying one more for the last 3 hours. That's the loop, and I can already see this being the core of online play, with people grinding through endless sandbox runs with their friends. And let me tell you, the nostalgia here is intentional. Sakurai knows people loved Smash Run. He knows fans of the original Kirby Air Ride still talk about City Trial like it was lightning in a bottle. So he leaned into that feeling hard. Even the item icons are nostalgic. During the direct, someone in my chat pointed out, wait, aren't those just PNGs floating around? And yes, they are, and it's brilliant. Sakurai kept the old-school 2D item designs straight out of Smash Run in the original Air Ride, specifically for that nostalgic punch. Could he have replaced them with glossy 3D models? Sure, but he didn't, because he knows the charm of seeing those flat retro images bouncing around a 3D world. It's a callback that fans will immediately recognize, and newcomers will just think is quirky. But don't think that means the whole mode looks dated. Quite the opposite. The world is packed with 3D models, high-res food items, detailed vehicles, and flashy effects. The PNGs stick out intentionally, almost like a wink to longtime players. It's one of those little details that screams Sakurai, because nobody else would even think to make that choice, let alone explain it in the direct. And honestly, this mode feels like the perfect middle ground between chaos and strategy. You're not just racing to the finish, you're racing to build yourself up, to out-collect, out-strategize, and outlast. It scratches the same itch as roguelikes or battle royales, where every run is different and every choice matters. But it does it in this colorful, 5-minute burst of Kirby-fueled madness that's easy to pick up, impossible to put down. That's why I think Sandbox mode is going to be the breakout star. The racing mode will be fun, sure, it'll scratch that Mario Kart itch. But Sandbox? That's the mode people are going to obsess over. That's the mode streamers will grind, friends will trash talk in, and fans will talk about years from now. Just like City Trial back in the day, this is going to be the part of Kirby Air Riders that people remember. So when Sakurai unveiled this, I had my second oh wow moment of the direct. First, the panic turned to excitement in the racing mode. But here I realized this isn't just a racing game. This is a Sakurai sandbox, a chaotic playground where anything can happen and where every match feels like a new story. And that, to me, is way more exciting than just another lap around the track. Here's the thing that really hit me while watching the Direct. Kirby Air Riders doesn't just look like a modern game, it feels like a GameCube game. In the best possible way. And I don't just mean because it's a sequel to the GameCube original. I mean the spirit of the design, the way it's presented, the quirks, the rough edges. It all feels like something straight out of that golden era of Nintendo experimentation, when games were a little weirder, a little riskier, and a whole lot more fun. Let me explain. When you play Mario Kart World, you're experiencing the evolution of Mario Kart into its most polished, streamlined form. It's slick, it's beautiful, it's packed with detail, but it also feels safe. It's Nintendo doing what Nintendo does best, refining, iterating, making something as clean and broad appealing as possible. And that's great. But it's not risky. Kirby Air Riders, on the other hand, feels like Nintendo in the early 2000s. Back when they were making oddball spin-offs, experimental mechanics, and games that didn't care if they were messy as long as they were fun. Remember F-Zero GX Custom Robo Mario Sunshine with its bizarre water jetpack gimmick? That era where every game felt like a unique experiment? That's the energy Air Riders has. And a lot of that comes down to Sakurai's design philosophy. He's not afraid of quirks, he's not afraid of things that look a little rough, if it means they'll play better. Like during the Direct, I couldn't help but notice some of the backgrounds and environments looked a little flat. The trees were these simple, almost Lego-like builds. The flowers were classic flat textures, sticking out at jagged angles. Fine, and normally in a modern racing game, I'd call that a flaw. I'd say, come on, it's 2025, we can do better than paper flowers. But here, it just felt right. It felt like GameCube nostalgia, but not in a cheap way. More like Sakurai deliberately kept that aesthetic alive because he knew fans would feel it. And honestly, once the action gets going, you don't even notice. When the colors are popping in HDR, when you're grinding rails at breakneck speed, when abilities are flying across the track, who's stopping to admire a tree texture? Nobody. The simplicity fades into the background, and the chaos takes center stage. And I'd argue that makes it more charming, not less. Then there's the decision to keep those iconic PNG item pickups. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth hammering home. That's a deliberate callback. Sakurai literally showed footage from the GameCube original, pointing out that the same 2D icons were used back then, and he chose to keep them here for nostalgia. He could have made glossy, modern 3D versions, he didn't, because he knows that seeing those floating PNGs instantly taps into that memory of old-school Nintendo weirdness. It's the same reason Smash still uses some goofy sound effects, or why certain animations feel cartoony. It's not about looking realistic. It's about feeling like Nintendo. And that's the core of it. Air Riders feels like a time capsule. Not in a way that makes it outdated, but in a way that makes it refreshing. We live in a time where so many games chase realism, polish, and cinematic presentation. And then along comes Sakurai with this gloriously chaotic, slightly rough-around-the-edges racer that's more about vibes than visuals. It's colorful, it's weird, it's unapologetically fun first. That's exactly what made GameCube games special, and it's exactly why Air Riders stands out today. Another thing that screams GameCube era is the sheer weirdness of the design choices. Think about it. A racing game where cars drive themselves? Where the main mechanic is inhaling enemies and spitting them out? Where half the game is an open sandbox with random world events and minigames? No focus group approved that. No boardroom full of executives signed off on that to maximize quarterly earnings. That's pure Sakurai chaos, the kind of creative risk that Nintendo was all about in the GameCube days. It feels experimental in a way big-budget games rarely do anymore. And the more I think about it, the more I realize how much gaming needs that energy right now. Don't get me wrong, I love polished games. I love when things look gorgeous. But sometimes that polish comes at the cost of personality. Games start to feel interchangeable. Pretty, yes, but also predictable. Kirby Air Riders doesn't feel predictable. It feels like a throwback to when developers were just trying things, layering ideas, and seeing what kind of madness came out the other side. That's why I think so many people, even those who don't care about Kirby, are suddenly hyped. Because it's not just nostalgia for a character, it's nostalgia for a type of game design we don't get often anymore, and honestly, it makes me smile that Sakurai leaned into that. He didn't try to make Air Riders look like a Mario Kart World. He didn't try to match its polish or realism. Instead, he made something that feels distinctly his own. Something messy, experimental, chaotic, and charming in equal measure. It's the kind of game where you notice a flat flower texture and laugh, not because it looks bad, but because it feels right. So yeah, when I say this game feels like GameCube spirit revived, that's exactly what I mean. It's colorful, it's chaotic, it's rough around the edges in a way that feels intentional. And above all, it feels like it was made by someone who cares more about making a game fun than making it perfect. That's the kind of energy that defined Nintendo's golden age for me, and it's the energy I see all over Kirby Air Riders. And here's the wild part. Even though it feels retro, it still looks and plays modern. 4K visuals, 60 frames per second, smooth controls, online integration. It's GameCube energy with modern horsepower, and that's such a perfect combo. Because nostalgia alone doesn't hold up forever, but nostalgia blended with modern polish, that's magic. That's what makes Air Riders feel like more than just a throwback. It feels like a revival, so while Mario Kart World feels like the future of racing, Kirby Air Riders feels like the past, brought roaring back to life. And honestly, I think we need both. Now, as much as I'm hyped for Kirby Air Riders, we've got to talk about the elephant in the room. Or, I guess, the plumber in the room. Because let's be real, no matter how creative, chaotic, or nostalgic this game is, its biggest obstacle isn't going to be frame rates or visuals or even reviews. Its biggest obstacle is Mario Kart World. Mario Kart is the most dominant racing franchise in gaming history, period. Every console it touches, it becomes a system seller. It's the game people buy alongside their Switch, or Switch 2, or whatever hardware Nintendo puts out. It's the party game, the family game, the I haven't played a video game in 10 years, but I'll play this one game. It's a juggernaut. So when a parent or a casual gamer, or even a Nintendo fan walks into Target or Walmart and sees two boxes on the shelf, Mario Kart World at $80 and Kirby Air Riders at $70. What do you think they're grabbing? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Mario. And that's what worries me, because Air Riders isn't just competing against a game in the same genre. It's competing against the king of the genre, one that just launched only 2 months ago. And for most people, the choice will seem obvious. Why buy Kirby when Mario is right there? Why buy the spin-off when you can buy the main course? But here's the thing. Kirby Air Riders is not just another Mario Kart. It's not even trying to be. Mario Kart World is about clean, polished racing. It's about everyone feeling like they can jump in, play, and have a good time without thinking too hard. Air Riders, on the other hand, is about chaos, strategy, and individuality. It's about weird mechanics, unique character abilities, and modes that feel more like a fighting game smashed together with a racer. These games may look similar on the surface, karts, tracks, items, races, but in practice, they're wildly different experiences. And that's where the marketing challenge comes in. Because the average shopper isn't going to know that. They're not going to watch a 45-minute Sakurai Direct. They're not going to dive into the details about sandbox modes and unique character abilities. They're just going to see Kirby Racing Game and think, oh, that's like Mario Kart, but worse. And if that perception sticks, it doesn't matter how good the game actually is, and it's going to struggle to stand out. Now, on the flip side, I actually think the price point is smart. $70 isn't cheap, but it's cheaper than Mario Kart World, which Nintendo had the guts to price at $80. That $10 difference may not sound like much, but it signals something. Air Riders isn't a budget spin-off, but it's also not trying to sit on the exact same pedestal. It's positioned as a premium game, worthy of the same shelf space as Mario, but with just enough of a price drop to make you think, maybe I'll try this too. It's Nintendo's way of saying, no, this isn't DLC. This isn't a throwaway. This is a full $70 experience that's packed with content. And honestly, from what we've seen, it does feel like a $70 game. Between the sandbox mode, the traditional racing, the sheer number of unique character abilities, the animations, the chaos, the online functionality, this thing is stacked. It's not just some cheap experiment. It's Sakurai in full go overboard mode, which means you're getting more game than you probably expect. The real question is whether Nintendo can convince people of that. Because here's the reality, Mario Kart sells itself. Kirby Air Riders doesn't. And that means Nintendo has to actually market this thing. They have to show people clearly and loudly why it's not just a Mario Kart clone. They have to push the chaos, the abilities, the Smash Run-inspired sandbox mode, all the stuff that makes this game unique. If they don't, then yeah, it's going to get overshadowed. But here's where I get optimistic. Nintendo knows Sakurai is the selling point. They let him do a 45-minute direct all by himself, talking directly to the fans. That's not something they do for just any game. They know his name carries weight. They know his reputation for over-delivering is what makes people like me, people who don't even love Kirby or racing games, suddenly hyped for this thing. And if they're smart, they'll keep leaning on that. From the creator of Smash Bros. Is a tagline that will get attention. And let's not forget, there is room for both. If you're a racing fan, Mario Kart World and Kirby Air Riders scratch totally different itches. Mario Kart is clean, accessible, and timeless. Kirby Air Riders is chaotic, strategic, and experimental. One is a safe family party game. The other is a wild Sakurai sandbox. There's absolutely room in your library for both. The question is whether casual buyers will realize that, or whether they'll default to the mustache they already know. So yeah, I think the $70 price tag is fair. I think the value is there. But the competition with Mario Kart World is going to be the real test. Because for this game to succeed, it's not enough for hardcore fans to love it. It has to convince casual players, the people who only buy a few games a year, that Kirby Air Riders is worth their time alongside Mario. And that's not an easy battle. At the end of the day, though, I think Sakurai has done everything he can. He's built something unique, nostalgic, chaotic, and deep. He's made sure this isn't just Mario Kart with Kirby. He's made something that deserves to stand on its own, and if Nintendo plays their cards right, I think there's a real chance this game surprises everyone. Not just critics and fans, but the market too. By the time the Direct ended and the release date flashed on screen, I had this huge grin on my face. November 20th, just a few months away. And I sat there thinking about how wild that journey was, going from skeptical to panicked to hyped out of my mind, all in the span of 45 minutes. And honestly, that roller coaster is the perfect way to describe not just this game, but Sakurai's career as a whole. Because here's the thing, Sakurai doesn't just make games, he makes experiences. He builds worlds where chaos and charm collide, where nothing is too small to be overthought, and where the tiniest details end up being the ones you remember forever. And Kirby Air Riders feels like the latest chapter in that legacy. Think about everything we've seen. The unique abilities for every character, the wild animations that make even the smallest riders feel alive, the combat layered into the racing, the sandbox mode that transforms a simple 5-minute collectathon into an endlessly addictive loop, the callbacks to GameCube nostalgia with PNG items and quirky visuals, the way every choice, the character, vehicle, ability, strategy, matters in shaping your experience. This isn't just another racer, this isn't just another Kirby game, this is Sakurai doing what he does best, taking a simple idea and pushing it way past the line of what anyone else would bother doing. And honestly, that's why people love him. It's not because every game he makes is perfect, it's because every game he makes is overflowing with personality. You can feel the care, the obsession, the humor. Like that little animation where Kirby wins by default because nobody else queued into the minigame. He didn't have to put that in. Most developers wouldn't have. But Sakurai did because he knew it would make players laugh. He knew it would give the game just that little extra spark of life. That's what separates him from almost anyone else in the industry. And it's also why I think Kirby Air Riders matters so much, even beyond the Kirby franchise. This game is proof that Nintendo still has room for weird, experimental, chaotic projects, even in 2025. It proves that not everything has to be as clean and safe as Mario Kart. It shows that there's still space for games that feel messy in the best way, games that take risks, games that chase fun over polish. And in an industry that's increasingly obsessed with sequels, service models, and monetization schemes, that feels incredibly refreshing. Now, will this game outsell Mario Kart World? Probably not. Let's be realistic here. Mario Kart is Mario Kart. It's unstoppable. But that's not the point. The point is that Kirby Air Riders doesn't need to be Mario Kart. It doesn't need to be the safe, dominant racer that every household buys. What it needs to be is what it already is, a chaotic, Sakurai-fueled alternative. The kind of game that wins over skeptics like me, The kind of game that fans of the original will lose their minds over, and the kind of game that carves out its own cult following. And I think that's going to happen. Because here's the truth, nobody walked into this direct expecting much. Nobody thought a Kirby racing game could possibly stand out next to Mario Kart World. But by the end, I guarantee there were thousands of people like me, people who didn't even play the GameCube original, people who aren't even big Kirby fans, sitting there thinking, wow, I actually want this. I need this in my library, and that's the magic of Sakurai. He takes something you didn't think you cared about and turns it into something you can't stop thinking about. So yeah, I'll say it plainly. I'm excited. I'm excited for a Kirby racing game I never asked for. I'm excited for a sequel to a GameCube title I never played. I'm excited for chaos, for nostalgia, for creativity, for Sakurai humor, for GameCube energy revived in 4K. I'm excited for November 20th. And most of all, I'm excited because this feels like a reminder of what gaming can be when developers care more about fun than anything else. So let's end with a question. What about you? Were you a fan of the original Kirby Air Ride back on the GameCube? Have you been waiting for this sequel for decades? Or are you like me, someone who went into the Direct expecting nothing, only to walk away completely sold? I want to hear it, because if this Direct proved anything, it's that Sakurai knows how to bring people together, whether you're a lifelong fan or a total newcomer. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you're as hyped as I am, hit that like button, subscribe for more gaming stories, and get ready. Because November 20th can't come soon enough. At the end of the day, here's what I'll say. If Sakurai's name is on the box, you don't just get a game. You get an experience. And Kirby Air Riders looks like one of his wildest, most charming experiences yet.